Yeah, I don't have any major thoughts. I'll just react to what you're talking about. I do like to dig into stuff, so
Right.
may do that. But yeah, I like talking about impact as well. So if we end up spending, I mean, I could spend a whole episode talking about
I
ways that
know.
folks
Well,
have
that's why I
impact
thought
and
like
things
if we
like
open
that.
up
So
that can of worms, we'll see what happens from there. Maybe we'll just go. So it's generally 3 segments, 15 to 20 minutes, and then we take a break, and then 15 to 20 minutes and a break. The break is just an edit stop for the show. So we're still live on YouTube. We can go right back in if we want, or we can actually just chit chat, get a drink, go to the bathroom if we want to.
Cool.
So that'll happen twice. I'll take care of those. I'll just kind of announce a break. And yeah, just a casual combo. I'm not sure if you've heard the podcast before, but it's pretty relaxed, pretty fun. Uh,
I like relaxed.
a lot of verbal jabbing between KBall and myself. We may or may not leave you out of it. We'll see how it goes. We might have some
Yeah.
collateral damage. So how do you say your last name?
Kumar. I think it's the most common name in India. Like if you go to India and try to ask people with Kumar to raise their hand, you'll just like get a huge amount of hands.
Yeah, Kumar. So that one I had. For some reason, I was thinking it was
Yeah.
Tejas, like like the way that people say Texas when they're.
Yeah, you and everybody else. And you
Like-
know what? The Spanish word tejas means roof tiles. So I actually have two of them just because I identify with them.
Just you identify with roof tiles. Nice.
That's my name, man.
You have
I
to.
literally
That-
just I have, and I can't have one because that's a teja. I gotta have a
right, you have
plural.
to have Tejas plural.
Pluralize that.
Does,
sucker.
That's right.
does your name mean anything in an Indian dialect of some sort? Or?
Yeah, yeah. It means words you would typically associate with the sun. So fire, heat, passion, brightness, that kind of vibe.
Nice.
Yeah.
You could like
Yeah.
have your
That's-
roofing tiles with the sun painted on them or something like that.
Oh,
There you
solar
go. I
panels.
could have there exactly.
Solar
That's
roofing
renewable
tiles.
energy. That's the way. Exactly.
I was gonna say I
Yeah.
think the Indian sun version is cooler than the roof tile thing. If you had to pick one. Yeah. Just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, just throwing out another tweet saying that we're live. I'll also put a mention in our JS Party channel here.
Man, I have to say, like, I really like the casual vibe this show has. It's really nice
Oh.
to hang out.
Thank you.
Let's just chill.
We try to create experiences that we also would appreciate, and like casual vibe. Who doesn't like a casual vibe?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes it-
It's not like this
makes it fun
formal
to
like
come back
suit
and
and
do
tie.
everything.
Exactly.
Right. All right, one message out to our Slack channel, and then we'll play the theme song.
There's a theme song.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
So cool.
There's so many
Cool if
fun
there was
sound
like a-
effects. Jared, you gotta
Like
share
a-
some of the Bone School ones. Oh, sorry. I think we have a little delay.
We might have a little
It's
bit.
fine,
of
no, I
a-
was-
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it'd be cool if there was like a Bollywoodified version of the theme song today, but maybe
Ah.
not.
If you had given us a heads up, we could
Yeah,
produce that.
yeah.
We definitely.
Hey,
we might be able
maybe-
to for next.
Maybe post edit, right? Get that in by
Yeah.
shipping.
Get Breakmaster Cylinder and say what we
then we can
need
do
is
the-
a Bollywood themed remix of our JS Party intro. I will put that request in. We will see if BMC delivers on time because we're on a 1 week turnaround. So BMC does often deliver on time. So we'll see what happens. I would like to entertain that request. All right, let's see if y'all can hear.
Your mind is a powerful weapon, Jared.
You hear that?
Yes.
My favorite quote.
JavaScript should be destroyed.
There we go.
I think that
That's
one's my
Chris.
favorite. Yeah.
That's a great
awesome.
idea. I'm glad I had it.
Chris has the best. He's the most quote worthy of us. So he gets all the soundboards. But
Nice.
okay, good to go. Any questions from you guys? I guess I already asked that, so we can just start. No questions. Of course, ask questions along the way, just like you would.
For
if you're
sure.
Hanging out for real. All right, here comes that theme song. Oh, hold on. There's an emergency in the background. Okay, it's gone. Was that your house, KBall, or is that you, Tejas? Oh, it's you. Are you in the middle of an emergency situation?
I'm
Fine,
I found a
Germany, right?
So I live literally like a block from
My resident
resident
dormant World
War
War
II bomb. And so they evacuated
Really?
like and they
Holy
evacuated
smokes.
my entire block. And if you hear emergency sounds in the background, it's because they're trying to get rid of this thing without blowing up the block. Welcome
Well,
to Germany.
you're quite brave to just just chill there while they
Well,
evacuate a
Yeah,
bomb.
my apartment's like just outside the edge of the circumference. You know, it's like the blast radius is it just ends like one building before mine, so I'm good.
Okay.
I don't have
So
to.
you're good to go.
Yeah.
And we hope they're accurate on their estimates.
Right. Unlike software
What?
developers, is it a software estimate?
No, it's not. Hope, I mean, but like, I mean, I don't think it'll explode. It'll be fine. They know what they're doing.
I don't think it'll explode. Famous last words.
That would make a good soundboard.
I don't think it'll explode.
Yeah.
That is good. All right. Well, let's get started then. Hello, friends. The sound of those Breakmaster Cylinder beats means it's time once again for a JS party. I am Jared, your internet friend, and I am joined today by KBall. What's up, man?
Hey, excited to be here.
Excited to have you. As always, we have a special guest with us, Tejas Kumar. What's up, man?
Was good. It's good to be here. I'm here only for.
You're here for the vibes. We have the vibes, so glad you're here.
We make the vibes.
And we do. We're going to continue to vibe.
Vibes.
And let's start off with the React Brussels vibe. So last week we gave a holla to React Brussels. This week we have a speaker from React Brussels. Remember, that's the event happening in Brussels on October the 14th. And last week I gave you some of the details, but I forgot one big part. Okay, so the part that I forgot is that Omar from the organizing team gave us a couple of things to help bring people out to the event. So the first thing is a coupon code, JS Party Time, all caps. I don't know if the caps matter, but go ahead and, QA test that form, see if you can go all caps or if they have a case insensitive matcher. And you save 30% off when you buy a ticket. We also have a free IRL ticket and 5 online tickets to give away. So we will be doing that. We don't have a plan yet. Follow us on Twitter, JS Party FM. So we'll let you know exactly how you can enter. It'll be pretty easy. And we will give out some tickets so we can get people out to the event. Tejas, are you excited about this conference?
I'm so excited.
Dude, this conference is like, it's special. It's family style. It's very communal. So like it's a tiny team, and a small conference. It feels like it's just a bunch of friends hanging out talking about React. It's the first time ever I think they do this in person anyway. But they did it was like a JS Brussels conference. Brussels JS, I want to say. It's the same team, and it's just the best. Like, and the thing that I like the most, right, is that they want to really highlight Brussels for you. They want to give you a tour, and hey, this is Belgium. Like, let's go to cities and eat waffles, and it's very like proud of where it is. I like that.
Yeah.
I love those. Those like single track, 1 to 500 people, like embedded in a space and like taking advantage of that space. I've been to a few that did that, and those are the best memories.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. I like single track because it's like we're all having this one shared experience. Of course, it's fun to like put together your schedule and say, I'm going to this one and that one. And you can kind of like for these multi-track conferences, but like the small, local, like you said, communal single track events where like the organizers really care and they're really proud of their local region. So much fun, so interesting. And I'm getting super jealous that I'm not going to be there, but happy to help Omar and the team. No, I'm not going to be there.
Man,
Which
you
I'm a
like,
little
aren't you
jelly
tied with
too.
Omar? It'd be like, Omar, like, make it happen, bro. And then,
Okay, I haven't said that exact phrase, but if that works, we'll see. I'm going to talk to Omar and see what happens. Tejas says, make it happen, bro.
Yeah, man.
So what you're talking to be about?
I'm gonna be talking about React. Wow, unexpected. No,
Surprise.
I'm gonna be talking about. So I was reading the React docs, right? And these new concurrent features are nice and really helpful. But since like Dan Abramov had this like JSConf Iceland talk where he like kind of teased Suspense for data fetching, it's always been this thing that like, is it ready yet and can I use it? You know. And with the new release, it is, but the React team's like, oh, but don't roll your own. You want to lean on a library like React Query or something. And I am not saying people shouldn't do that, but I'm saying if somebody just wanted to play and see how the libraries work with this, that's what my talk's about. Is like, here's kind of what the libraries are doing, and if you wanted to build your own just to have fun, this is how it would look. And we do that controversial thing where we throw promises. And React caught some flack for that. Like, how could you throw promises? You're only supposed to throw errors. And JavaScript, meanwhile, is like, no, you can throw literally. You
Throw whatever you want, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
So
that's
we'll be
looking
throwing
at some promises and looking at
how it works.
Those are cool talks because even if you're never going to use it directly and you're going to use React Query or something, like just having that knowledge of what's going on under the hood, and I could reproduce this if I wanted to because I went to this awesome talk, that gives you so much confidence when you're using stuff and when you're debugging. Why is it not working? Because now I understand what's going on down there in
Yeah.
the nitty-gritties.
And it also gives you like topics for communication. I can totally see like hopefully people go to work the next day or after the conference and they're like, you won't believe what I learned. Here, let me show you. And they start pair programming and then community ensues. People end up more together. That's kind of the hope with the content I try to create.
So I'm one of those people a little skeptical about throwing promises and throwing random stuff. Like that feels like what it should be a part of our WTF JS segment of like,
Oh,
really?
okay.
Really? We're doing that?
Just because you can doesn't mean you should, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. So I'm kind of curious, like, as someone who started digging in and using it, like, how did it feel once you crossed that WTF boundary?
I didn't even have the WTF boundary because like, I don't know, man, I've been doing JavaScript for so long that I just expect all kinds of BS to be able to be done.
There you go.
I've been writing JavaScript since I was like 12 and I'm almost.
So
I'm
you
used to-
have
That's more
you
than
have
half your life.
internalized the WTF.
Because I'm not a pure.
I've never
come from
toured
complete.
years ago.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm like closer to JavaScript than proper programming, if that makes sense. So to me, I don't see the problem with throwing promises. I'm curious, KBall, what makes you feel like WTF about throwing promises?
There's a couple things. So one is just it makes it really it feels like it would make it very hard to track control flow and understand where it's almost to like go-to level of like, okay, hop myself way back out to who knows where, like the tracking control flow and like how does logic move through the system and how does that work just feels like it is going to be like full of foot guns and like
Yeah.
very, very challenging to reason about and to debug. So that's the main place that I'm coming from there is just like thinking about, okay, how would I understand what's going on in this code when I'm coming in and it's broken because either somebody else wrote it or I wrote it and it's 6 months ago or what have you. And like, I don't have the mental model for how it was supposed to work. Like, how am I going to track this down and figure it out? So that's kind of like my initial reaction. Now, as I said, I have not yet played around with this idea of throwing promises. So it may be that in practice, that is not as much of an issue, but certainly in considering it, it feels like, okay, this is going to maybe work when I follow the golden path. And anytime anything breaks, it's going to be a nightmare to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and that's because the error constructor gives you a stack trace, right? That's the whole point, like of throwing even the like constructed errors. I see that. Yeah. Although like I understand your perspective absolutely. But from the React perspective as well, the reason they even do this is because any which I'm sure you're aware, right? The component tree can be super deep, and they essentially want to recreate. Like Suspense is basically error boundaries. Like you catch something that's data fetching some levels deep in your tree, and don't render the DOM until it's. So like conceptually throwing
That's going to catch.
and be like, okay, spinner here if the delay is too long. That's kind of why I think they even went for that construct, because as far as I know in JavaScript, that works quite like
Where you can n levels deep.
and respond to it.
Maybe event emitters.
Probably work that way. But
Now,
I can
what
understand how-
happens if the promise isn't caught?
then
you get
I think as of now,
global app suspense. So like
the whole app doesn't render. Wait, that's yeah. So I think there's like a root level catch block, so to speak, meaning until every suspense boundary ready, nothing blank screen.
And if you've
But
already
if-
rendered something and you navigate somewhere else or have a subcomponent that's now re-rendering and throwing a promise that isn't caught, does it like blank out your screen?
It I think
I don't know
what
what
happens on the screen console, like, hey,
you see it on this thing. There was no
fallback. Usually there's a fallback prop that you give to it, which is like a loading spinner or something. But in the absence of a fallback, that's actually good. I don't know how that responds. It'd be fun to try.
So once again, like I hear the problem that we're solving here, like it, and it is a real problem, but I think it's also, once again, this is like you're, depending on how that's handled, which I don't have a sense, but it's essentially eliminating the possibility of containment for that component, right? That component cannot function necessarily in isolation. It has to be like the parents have to understand that it's
Yes.
going to throw something,
Right.
and I
Right.
need to handle that.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Which, you know, that's okay for some patterns, right? And like that it does solve some otherwise relatively unsolved issues here. It feels fraught to me.
Yeah,
It feels
yeah.
like
I understand
this
because
is,
like
this is going to add a lot of overhead or maintenance overhead.
and it's also going to add a lot of cognitive load, it sounds like. Because if you did want to run this component in isolation, you would then have to think, oh, wait, I should add a suspense boundary just at the boundary of this component itself. And that would then, at least while the component loads its data, you have the possibility to show something else. But you still have to like keep that in mind. If not, React will warn you. So yeah, I agree.
What happens
I-
if you nest suspense boundaries? Or can
That's
you?
a good question.
Like,
You can nest them, and I think I don't know if this is out yet, but from what I saw in early demos, you can give them like different timeouts. So if you have A at the top and then B is a nested suspense boundary, what would happen is your app would render until B and then pause rendering until B has data, and basically it would the highest up element from the thing that's suspending would pause until the thing that's suspending has data. Now,
if there's multiple layers of
suspense,
right? But if there's just
one
one
at the very top of your app, then you have the choice of like not rendering anything, or even like removing your app from the screen while something deeply nested is rendering, is fetching rather, is suspending.
so
So
it does
give you a containment problem. I hear that. It also gives you like fine-grained control as to what to show and what to hide based on. You could,
Yeah.
for example, if you have like a little to-do list, you could choose to hide your whole app while the list refreshes, or you could choose to just hide one to-do. If you update that, you have more control.
yeah, I feel like this is potentially why the recommendation is there to say, like, use this within the context of libraries or things like that, because it creates
guns.
this ability to foot gun.
Yeah.
You want to, have someone who has spent the time to understand
Guardrails.
this and go build a bunch of guardrails around it. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yep, that's.
But yeah,
that's
I mean, to your point, like, it can be really valuable to know enough to go outside of that when you want to.
exactly. And even if not, it's just fun to hack shit together. Can I swear on this podcast? Is that allowed? Are you gonna bleep
You
me
just
out
did.
when? I
We'll
know,
bleep you
yeah.
in the final one, but it's all good.
Jared will bleep you. I have occasionally gotten a little salty as well.
Sometimes KBall just does it just so I have to get the bleep out, you know, which is just rude.
Yeah. No, but
Actually, like through this
discussion, I kind of have more content for my talk now. I could even just tell people, hey, listen, this is
why.
Um,
But just in case, yeah.
hack some shit together.
Totally.
Yeah.
A lot of these
Well,
talks,
like I always say,
we're hackers, right? Like that's fun.
I gotta say, hacker's gonna hack. Like that's what we do. So of course.
Yeah,
But,
that's
you
also
know.
Yeah.
talks like this of
mine are like
the best.
the one
I
I
once did a I showed up to a meetup once, and
did not plan to do a talk.
there, right? But it was kind of dead, and the meetup
Organizer
organizer was like, "Dude, can you like do something?" So I was like,
But okay, sure.
"Sure." Present something, and I'm like, and then I'm like, let's just re-implement
React, like
like a
clone
from scratch.
That's
And how we did it was we wrote a React component, but we never imported React from React. So when you run this, you have a JavaScript error saying, cannot read create element if undefined, right? And then we literally just like polyfilled this whole thing as we went.
Yeah. Going backwards from the API. I love it.
Exactly. And we did that over 45 minutes. And by the end, we implemented React to render our hooks. And we kind of also inadvertently understood why the rules of hooks apply. Like, why can't you have conditional, like, use states and so on? It was fun. That was like my best, most well-received presentation ever. And it was a complete fluke.
That's awesome.
Did it get recorded?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's called Deconstructing React.
Okay, we'll link that one up.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. That's why if you're a meetup organizer, you should always have a talk in your back pocket. You are the
Yeah.
ultimate backfill. Like, what if you hadn't been there?
Yeah, and I wasn't even planning. That's the cool thing. I think it was very spontaneous, and because I had really no material, I was like involving the people who were there. I'm like, hey, listen, why don't we all just like hack together and see what happens? And people got really. It was really a fun time. And now, man, this YouTube video, like whenever I feel bad about myself, I just go on YouTube, and people say that.
That's awesome.
Which is so
weird because
like if
people
recently and said
no one can ever
hate
Mhm.
like internet people usually on Twitter I find to be mean just because there's no like face or voice or humanity to connect
Well,
to the
there's no
person,
repercussion. Yeah.
right? And you can hide behind the anonymity or the
Right.
not the anonymity but the lack
Pseudonymity.
of like yeah, exactly. But on YouTube on this video, like I think there's enough personality where people are actually nice. So anyway,
I love making talks interactive in that way. Though I found that like if you plan on it, right? So you prepare enough content that is like going to be half of your talk and you're like, I'm going to bring them in, I'm going to be interactive. Like sometimes you end up with a dead audience and you're sunk.
yep.
Then what do you do?
And then you're like, dang it, I put all my eggs in this one basket.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you ask them not to record it and move on with your life.
Yeah.
Don't post it on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's break right here. We'll call this a break. Call it our first break. Heck, we haven't even got into your pillar stuff yet, but we're at our
See?
first break. So,
I
see?
like it.
It's good.
How often?
There'll be 2 of them, so like 1/3 of the way through. And I normally time it, but I just forgot to, so I just kind of made this one up. I'm pretty sure it was close enough.
Are the
Okay.
breaks also
Covered.
like
live streamed on YouTube.
Yeah, so we're always on YouTube throughout. So this will end up like we're still, hello YouTube, we're still there. Hey, by the way, YouTube, you guys are the best commenters. I'm gonna say, of darn near. I mean, it used to not be this way, but I think generally speaking, maybe it's just the videos that I watch and the ones that we post and stuff. But like, YouTube comments are kind of better than a lot of other places. Like, you can get some toxicity, of course, but generally it's like relatively positive, lots of insightful stuff. I don't know. I appreciate YouTube comments in comparison to Twitter, Reddit, Hacker News.
Yes, I strongly
What else
agree.
do I read?
Maybe it's because they're actually seeing the people. So you don't
Yeah,
get
maybe.
that dissociation.
There's more of a connection.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I find that actually as a podcasters, our feedback is generally also positive and thoughtful. Even when it's negative, it's thoughtful. And I think it's because you can get way more empathy with voice than you can with text. Like people feel like they kind of can hear the nuance and they can understand you. And so, generally speaking, podcast, although the comments are way less than you get on YouTube because there's just less of a centralized place to comment, I think we generally do have thoughtful and positive comments as well. So, the
Yeah,
higher, I guess, the more data that you have, the more likely you are
exactly.
to act
The more
real.
connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the more
Which
the
like
more
data is
connection,
a proxy
exactly.
for, but I think it's not necessarily like you could stream an animated thing that was not very good for
Yeah, like I'm
fostering
not.
connection.
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
you'd get there, right?
Human
But
data.
exactly, the more that the people consuming the content connect to the people creating it as humans rather than as anonymous words on the web.
Avatars with text and emoji. Yeah.
Like someone
Okay,
was telling me
Yes,
they were explaining evolution to me, and they're like, there's a reason human babies are so cute, um, because
don't eat
they're
them?
so yeah, because there's a very stressed out mom who's on her hasn't slept in 12, just like, man, what I do for some sleep. She's like, there's a reason they're so cute.
Yeah, because the first 3 months are hell. They would never survive if.
Right.
Yeah.
On that note, let's hop back in, shall we? So we'll go on to your impact from there. Sometimes we'll take the breaks and put them at the end as Easter eggs. This was a particularly good break. Note to the editors, maybe throw this one back in after the show's over or
Vibes, man.
something. Oh man, I leave notes to the editors, but I'm the editor, so I'm just gonna hear this later and be like, "Thanks, Jerod. Thanks, past me."
Hey, it's good to
Anyways.
look out for future me.
It is. That's why
Someone's got to.
That's why I leave a comment every once in a while on my code, just every once in a while. Warning: this code sucks. I hope you have better ideas later. Most of my comments are warnings or apologies to my future self. Like, sorry, I just couldn't think of a better way of doing it. So here it is. Hopefully you can, future me.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Here we go. So we wanted to talk about this thing you wrote recently on your website, the Pillars of Impact for Web Engineers. Interesting. It started off as it was going to be a text message, and then I guess you realized you had a lot to say about it, so you turned it into a nice big long blog post, and then I assume you just texted the link to the blog post. That's very much a Scott Hanselman move. He has
Really?
this
I didn't know
whole
that.
he will not email anybody answers. I'm speaking very generally. I'm sure he does it sometimes, but his stance is like you only have so many keystrokes in your life, and so if you're going to write something, write it in a place that's public, of course, assuming that you're giving public advice, and then take that link and give it to the person, and now you've shared it with much more. It's about impact, right? You have a much bigger impact with your words versus writing a personal email that only one person will ever write, or ever read. So anyways, that's his stance. It seems like in this case you followed that exact same thing, and here we are. Now a lot more people are benefiting from your thoughts. So why don't you unpack this for us, these different pillars you come up with of different ways you can have impact.
Yeah, sure. Like one of my best friends, a former coworker at Spotify, Iris, asked me about this. I don't remember why. It was at the time where I was thinking about the industry, and like I'm really tired of like really smart people. Like
Preach.
There's like people who are like, I'm so smart, and who like,
there's an energy, there's a tech bro energy that is not conducive to good vibes. It's very much if I ask you a question, I already know you're just gonna paste me a Google result link to some abstract result set that I could do myself, but you just want to show me how busy you are or whatever. And like I think we have missed the mark on what we consider smart historically, where we think smart is somebody who can write like a one-line map reduce. Whereas I think we've kind of missed prioritizing like emotional intelligence as highly as we ought, personally. And so that's kind of some of the thinking that went in here, because in these pillars of impact, as I've written, and there's 4 of them, because like legs on a table, 4 pillars usually lead to something standing. the only one of them, the last one, is technical impact, because we're in a day and age, y'all, where I think pretty much anyone who has the resources and means can learn how to code. Like Free Code Camp, Quincy Larson, like that stuff. I think there's like 3,000 hours of courses where you could just like learn stuff and get... So writing code and being able to Google and Stack Overflow internals of React or Elasticsearch or whatever it may be, I don't believe this is as valuable, for example, as recognizing when your teammate is either burnt out and then covering for them, or like having someone, like recognizing when somebody really cares about documentation, and if you're in a position to do so, saying, hey, why don't you lead that? I would love to follow you here, and kind of, you know, let them take the lead and pioneer some stuff. Those things we even called them soft skills, and I have a problem with this because I feel like
You're
calling
talking
them
KBall's language.
I feel like calling them soft minimizes them,
right?
but like interpersonal relationship things, like
KBall, you're talking about connection.
or in
My
no
opinion,
matter what BS that we do, because anyone
could do that
these days.
let him.
I'm on a campaign to get them called human skills rather than soft
Exactly.
skills.
That's good. Yeah, why don't you tell me more? Jared said I was speaking
Start a
your language.
petition.
I'm curious.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Well, one thing that immediately springs to mind, and something that I try to communicate to as many engineers as possible, is your technical skills are important and maybe a distinguisher of success early in your career. But overwhelmingly, what I see that separates folks who kind of go Olays and get stuck from those who are successful later in their career is those human skills. It's communication, it's tech, it's empathy, it's leadership, it's coaching, it's all of these different pieces that go into how do I take this base of technical skills that I built up and actually apply it in a way that makes my coworkers better, my company better, my product better, like really understanding all of the things that go around it. Because at the end of the day, what we do with our technical skills is solve human problems. And to solve the right human problems and to understand those problems well enough to solve them, you need those human skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me hop on for a second because I think there's a strong sales pitch for this for people that might kind of roll their eyes or kind of say, here we go again, talking human skills. When you talk about investing in yourself, like what you're going to get better at, what you're going to improve, as engineers, we think about scalability, right? Like how something scales horizontal, vertically, etc. And our technical skills, they can't scale very far. In fact, if we pick the wrong technology, you can invest in skills that'll be dead in 6 months or maybe 4 years or whatever. Like my jQuery skills today don't really mean much anymore, even though I still have them. Like, is nobody hiring jQuery today? I would love to. But the communication stuff specifically, and a lot of these things, but specifically thinking about communication, as you improve and as you put effort into improving your communication, this is not just helping you in the world of your career and your business. This is your entire life. Like this scales horizontally across all your relationships, all of your, interactions with other people. Like there's real scale to investing in these human skills, and not necessarily instead of technical skills, but also, in addition to your technical skills. And they are, I agree with you, KBall, they are the things that level you up beyond the landing that job and staying, in the industry as an employed person, like getting to that next phase. It's almost always human stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm honestly, when I started my career, I was not
Technically.
Some would say today I'm not very competent technically. You know what I'm saying? But I throw promises, for goodness sake. You know what I'm saying?
Throw promises, man.
I
Come
throw
on.
promises.
But you did re-implement React, so in 45 minutes.
That was a key point.
No, but the
only reason
I've seen the success
that I've seen,
which I consider a significant amount given my background, is because I tend to be good interpersonally with people. I've put in the work to create a likable, amicable, friendly personality. And this, I believe, pays dividends. It's not like I've seen conversely, I've seen a lot of people, especially in this industry where supply and demand are so heavily in favor of me, of the individual. Like whenever, like people don't last long in jobs. Like I especially think about my friend Nader Dabbit, who like he'll finish like a year somewhere and then go get a new job. And this is not like an exception. This is common in this industry. I don't know people who
Oh, that's
stay at
common.
jobs for yeah, I don't know people who stay at jobs for more than 2 years because we have the options, right? Every time I hear someone leave a job, it's almost never about, oh, the code was too hard. It was usually, the people didn't believe in me or something like this. And it's usually an interpersonal thing. I also read a study where they kind of found that after earning a certain amount of money, I think it was like something of the order of $70,000 a year or something, people tend to think less of every extra dollar. And then suddenly these interpersonal things, these human skills as we're calling them, become way more of a factor in choosing where you work and why you work there.
Right.
So yeah, I think this is invaluable, and this blog post is an attempt at highlighting these things, and also speaking to some of the realities in the industry, man. Like I've had coworkers tell me they think I write shit code because I'm Indian, and like that
What?
because yeah, and I've had them even justify it, argue to my face, telling me, well, it's just law of averages. There's so many call centers and consultants who don't have the time to be trained.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And so the blog post is kind of talking about now whether we recognize it or not, statements like that and conversations like that also have impact. They're just not
Yeah.
very good impact.
Right. Right. Not the kind you want.
Right, exactly. So this post kind of talks about the wrong and the help, ultimately trying to help us move towards, like, as KBall was saying, connection and community with other human beings is really the shit. Sorry, I know you're gonna have to bleep that, but like I don't know
You're
how else
making
to
me
say
work,
it.
man. You're making me work.
Like, it's
I mean, at
it's
this
the
point,
stuff.
that's how I decide
It's
where
the
to work.
stuff.
Right? Like I don't choose, like, there's these different things you can decide what do you want to work on, right? Is this a great company? Are they going to the moon? Salaries, is this cool projects, whatever. Like my number one thing I look for is, do I want to work with these people? Everything
Exactly.
else is secondary or third or what have you. Like the number one question is, do I want to work with these people? And conversely, like I'm closing in on 3 years at my current company, and especially before the job market started going south, like you're hearing all these people, they're shifting around, and you get this like, am I missing out? What's going on? And I was like,
Right.
I should talk to different people. I talked to some folks, and I'm like, no, I want to keep working with these people. They're amazing. Like all that other stuff is shiny and exciting, but like the people are the reason that it's fun to show up somewhere.
Exactly. And this goes so much deeper even, right? Because like recently read a
Talk about it in the shout out section if we get to it.
but essentially the author highlights how what makes the apex predator in the top, human beings superior above animals and all this is it's not that we were the smartest necessarily, but that we were the most collaborative. Human connection by and large is the whole deal, man. And so like when we work together in a team where we feel at home, amazing things happen. So yeah, I think the interpersonal vibe, you could just summarize and call it a vibe, right? But like the interpersonal energy is so key. And honestly, like where I work today, look, there's drama and there's communication issues with people and so on. But like my immediate team, the DevRel team, these people, dude, I'd be comfortable going to war with them on my side, so to speak. They have my back. I know it. And even if there's times where I'm looking around, I'm like, ooh, my friend Hussein's at Google wants to hire me there. And like, if the job market looks attractive, I'm like, but these people here, I can't, like, these are my people, man. So
Says a lot for retention, but
Oh
go
yeah.
ahead, Cable.
So I'd love if we could then dig into some kind of actionable things for folks, right? Like a lot of this comes from the top, it comes from team culture, it comes from manager culture, things like that. But if you're on a team, you're an individual, how do you go about improving the vibe?
yeah, this is a great
You won't believe how many
conversation with this.
so yeah,
Recently I read, I'll shout it out,
whew,
but
to
bring the vibe is number one.
I don't have
a formula.
right, but
Number one, I realize that I cannot read minds. Like
human beings tend to
times
the
the
other
person's
person's
thinking. So sometimes
I'll get a pull request review.
full of like direct in this README. And I'm
Like, really, bro? You wanna go there?
but I don't know if this is malicious or not. It's probably not. I have no way of knowing. So I keep that at the forefront of my mind when I see things. Just like, hey, I don't know what this person is. I could even ask them, and that removes some of this initial kind of vitriol that is instinctive within us when we receive things we perceive as hostile. So that's one thing I do. The other thing I do is I tend to value connection with humans really highly because so again I've read lots of research like from MIT and Harvard and Yale, and it turns out no man is an island is an extremely true maxim. We were not made to be alone, and so what I'll do is I'll try to pursue like, hey, let's just hang out and have like a water cooler Zoom chat, things like this. But above and beyond that, I recognize the flip side of this, and I think this is probably the most important thing I'll say, and I'll stop after this because I think that's enough. Is recognizing loneliness as this like silent killer, murderous disease that just kind of creeps up on us. And I don't know what kind of society y'all were raised in. I was raised with this like weird like pseudo Indian Middle Eastern vibe. That's where I grew up, and in India you don't talk about that stuff. It's like, oh no, you can't admit you're lonely. That's weak. You're weak. What are you, weak? Are you a girl or something? This is what we grow up with. It's toxic. It's not really healthy, right? And when we don't acknowledge, hey, I'm feeling super lonely and I need some connection, then we start playing with fire. Because in the literature, and this is consistent research across multiple bodies and years and researchers that show that when people feel lonely, two things happen. One, you trust other people less, and two, you just automatically assume ill intent. So if you're really suffering from loneliness and somebody brings you a cake, you're going to be like, wait, is this poisoned?
It's your agenda here.
And conversely, if you're in community, the same events will elicit a different response. You'll be trusting, and you'll, if somebody comes and like punches you, but you're full of community, you'll be like, wait, you didn't mean that, right? Like you'd assume good intent, like organically. And I've in the past had managers who tell me like, oh, just assume good intent, but telling someone to do that isn't enough. And from what I've seen, like being in community makes assuming good intent more accessible. So that's kind of what I do. Is now I have destigmatized in myself loneliness. I started to like recognize, hey, I feel super lonely right now. Thankfully, I have a wife. So like I go to her and I'm like, listen, I'm super lonely right now. Could you spend like 5 minutes with me so I get back to reality? And she does this, and then I come back and read a pull request that once seemed hostile, and now I'm like, oh man, this is fine. Either this is fine, or I have even like empathy for the person. I'm like, oh, they must be having a hard day or something. So that's kind of what I'm doing to bring the vibe, and it seems to be working. So sorry, a long rant, but it's a topic I'm passionate about. Passionate enough to write a blog post like this.
All good. The blog post, Pillars of Impact for Web Engineers. It's in your show notes. Obviously, we're not going to cover it word for word. So if you like what Tejas is saying and you'd like to hear more, go give that one a read. All right, we'll break right here. Stop and reset. We'll get into the news. You're going to have to give that book recommendation because I don't think we're going to make it as shout-outs, but
Sure.
You'll have to shout it out at some point because now you've teased it twice, and I don't think we're going
And it's so, and the cool thing is I have no vested interest in this.
I have nothing
to gain.
like, dude,
It
has fixed every
I
relationship.
want to get it now.
I have. It's
No, I wanna get
magic.
it.
It's called Plays Well with Others by Eric Barker. A very good book.
Okay.
I will.
It's also
literally
in
order
the-
that right now.
It's in the show.
the first of my
Shout out.
Cool.
This weekend. People can get it.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll get everything in there.
I
All right, let's
do-
start our third.
I think KBall, I
segment.
think you'll
I think K-Ball, you'll enjoy that
I
because you're
100%. As I said, I'm gonna order it right now. It's gonna be fastest to do it on my phone.
nice.
Live one click. You got the one click set up?
I do. Plays well with others.
Why click twice when you could just click once? I mean, that's
All right.
what I'm asking.
Here we go.
That's the way.
Because you might accidentally buy the
Buy
wrong
now.
thing.
It is on its
As soon as
way.
K-Ball makes his order, we'll go back to our third segment. Are you good?
I'm good.
All right.
Can I chime in on one of the
Of
things?
course.
Some of the things Tejas was
Go
saying?
for it.
On what you were saying on the previous segment?
Yeah.
Oh
I was gonna
man,
go, and then you're closing it off, and I was like, all right,
we're
I'll
running
let
out
him
of
finish.
time, man. We gotta
I
get to the
know,
news.
but they're
You want to just ditch the news?
one. Well,
We
I
could.
don't. Maybe, but just one really quick thing. One really quick thing, because
For
two
the
of the
previous
things.
segment or
mean-
for the second?
I
All
mean,
right,
we can.
chime it
I
in.
don't know.
We'll splice it in,
Okay.
and then we'll
Just-
go to our third segment because I like to have a clean break. Go ahead, splice it in.
Okay,
We'll splice
all right.
this.
So just, I love some of the things you're talking about there, and I want to combine two of them. A practice I've been doing for a while and encouraging my reports now that I'm a manager to do, which is if you get a PR review or a ticket or something from someone that you don't have already a personal connection to, set up a 30-minute one-on-one that is purely about creating a social connection. And doing that has like just helped tremendously so much in like getting the like level of malicious intent feeling of like, why are they doing this? Why are they asking this mean thing? Whatever. And it's even bigger cross engineering, right? Like set that up with the customer success rep who keeps filing tickets that you have to solve. Because the more they understand that you are a human being and you understand that they are a human being, like implicitly, without like we know that in our heads, but you feel that because you know, hey, Bryant's not filing this ticket to make me mad. He's filing this because he's got this thing, and I know he's cool, and we vibe over music and whatever. Like it just makes such a world of difference in all this world of interaction that's so text based to make that social connection once you start having any of that coming through.
Well said.
I agree.
That's it.
Well said.
That's awesome.
All right, we'll splice that. Now we're gonna go into the third segment. A lot of editing on this episode.
Sorry,
Oh,
my bad.
Oh,
That's
and you know
because we're
what?
vibing.
That's true.
That's right.
I think bringing the vibe might be a good title for this episode. Just thinking.
I
out
love
loud.
it.
Yes, I approve.
Okay, let's
Send
bring
it.
the news vibe now. All right. Guess what time it is? It's time for story of the week.
It's time to take a peek. It's time for the story of the week.
Just
Wow,
repeat that.
man, Jared,
Jingle
that's an
over.
amazing singing voice you have.
I am an excellent musician, except for that's not me, so I can't take credit. But I did commission it, so I guess I can take some credit. That's
Was
our
that-
good friend.
It was on the
Matt
fly,
Ryer.
right? He did that on the
Yeah.
fly when you asked
Yeah,
him?
he
He
just did
did.
it just now.
Just now. Yeah, I just keep him in the corner over here with his guitar, and I just throw change at him, like, sing, monkey, sing. No, that's our good friend Matt Ryer from Go Time, and he's quite the musician. So this is Story of the Week. This is where we take turns sharing what we believe are the most important or biggest stories of the week, and then we debate who's actually got the best story. No, we don't really care about that. That's just the premise. We just share stories and talk about them. So I will kick us off with what is, I guess, not something that's happened, but something that's talked about going to happen, which is that Dino has announced on their blog some big changes ahead. So this is future stuff for Dino. Interesting. Anytime that you see a company announcing things that are going to happen, you think, are they reacting to something that's been going on? It seems like they feel like they have to say something. And I think they are reacting to some of the excitement and the buzz around Bun, the new JS runtime, which is blazing fast and is very much a competitor to Dino and Node.js, the up-and-comer, which got a bunch of people's ears perking up in the recent weeks because of the speed. So Dino has a couple of announcements, two big ones here that I'll focus in on. They actually announced a few more things that are going to happen. The first one is that they've been working on some updates that will allow Dino to easily import NPM packages, which will make the vast majority of NPM packages work in Dino within the next 3 months. So, as I often say, no self-respecting software developer gives an ETA when they don't have to, but they've locked themselves into a 90-day cycle on this feature. They must be pretty close to having it finished. The second
Maybe
one,
they listened to JS Party back when Dino was initially announced, and we were ragging on them for not having package
and we're
support.
like, you got it, support NPM. Yeah, totally. Although I think strategically this is somewhat of an obvious need. Now, I guess the technical requirements to get them there were probably not straightforward, so that's why it's taken a while. But I think anytime you start something brand new, you want to have an ecosystem that exists, and you're ignoring the largest package ecosystem in the world. Not the wisest move. So they're working on that. And the second one is their goal is to make Dino the fastest JS runtime. This is why I said I think they're reacting very much to a lot of the excitement around Bun. And they said, for starters, the next release of Dino will include a new HTTP server. It's the fastest JS web server ever built. So I'm sure you two saw this announcement. A lot of people talking about Dino's big changes upcoming soon. Curious your hot takes, or maybe it's been a few days. Maybe you have some warm down takes. What do you think about this? What's going on?
I
Not everybody at once.
think no, I think it's really nice that Dino's having some type of interop with npm, because that's been a deterrent for me, like going full on a Dino so far. I think that's great. It kind of reminds me of, and this is probably, I wonder how this is going to be received, but it kind of reminds me of the author of Homebrew wanting to like recreate Homebrew, but using the blockchain. Have you heard of this? It's called T. And it's basically Brew,
Yeah,
but
Max Howell, the original creator of Homebrew. I did hear about this. I heard the initial announcement, and haven't heard anything since, but I'm sure they're working on it.
yeah, it just reminds me of that, because it's this like big step of, it's a big change, and I feel like this change to Dino is in a similar order. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how the community will grow and actually use it. I'm excited to use it myself.
KBall, does this make Dino suddenly, I mean, assuming that they ship this at some point in the next 90 days, does it make it much more of a feasible adoption story for you as a developer?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it's a sign that maybe they're starting to listen to the developer community and think about what's going to make this usable instead of a fun toy.
Wow, controversial.
Very hot,
That's, I feel,
very
yeah,
spicy take.
there's some salt behind that, man. So does
No,
that
I mean,
mean?
to be fair, right? So when you want to run an early project and you want to explore some new things, it's actually better to treat it as a toy, or treat it as something where you're not trying to meet everybody's needs. You're not trying to do all these things, because that's what lets you explore. But it also means that, you have something that is not necessarily ready for production use in any way, right? Like importing from a URL that you don't own has always struck me as like, it's not standardized. It's not like, nobody's going to do that in production. You're going to have to set up your own package management system to make sure that you have consistent versions and other things. Like, just all sorts of layers of this that just did not feel like they were aiming at trying to get this used by people who are not playing and hacking for fun, which
Right.
fine. Like, that's, once again, that may be the best way to approach it when you're trying to do something new and different, and I'm totally fine with that. But I did feel like there was maybe some attempts to sell it as something that was for people doing production projects before it was actually trying to listen to what those folks needed. And this looks like, okay, maybe they're listening. So great.
What's interesting is that like that's the route that Go went, with like just import a URL. And 10 years later, I mean, it's longer than that, but like the Go community has been dealing with that and the fallout of that, and like now there's Go mod, like this module system, like they've been working around like, okay, but we do need actual package management ever since. So it's interesting
right? And
that
that
Dino
came
made that
because it was
choice.
from Google, right? Like, Google didn't care. They're like, we own all our stuff. We're gonna write all our own code anyway. We don't care. But Dino's coming from the outside. Like,
Right, that's what I'm saying. It seems like they would have learned, and even Go has had serious ramifications from that decision amongst the community. And it seems like Dino starting maybe 8 years into Go's lifespan would have looked over and said, I like the purity of like, well, just just another universal resource locator. Like, just give us that, and we can resolve and download. It's very webby, but it's actually lacking in many significant ways. What about the runtime speed stuff? I mean, even in their expansion, they say there's been a lot of chatter recently about runtime speed. I mean, are they pretty? Seem like they're intimidated here by what Bun is up to.
Yeah, Bun and the workers runtime. I don't know how Dino deploy works, how well it works rather with serverless functions. That's another thing I want to try and play with, because it's a beefier runtime. So I'd expect it to not be. I'd love to just see numbers about how that looks anyway.
How fast it boots and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are probably a subset of people for which that's important. I've found that anytime I'm running server-side code, the limiting factor is almost never the code itself, and it's network access and database access. So like I don't have any use cases where the speed of that thing is going to make that big of a difference.
I think in the somewhat distant, maybe near future, like where everyone's building with these serverless platforms and the edge processing, like that boot time, that speed of just like from the point that you invoke this remote function to the point that it's finished, has become very important for the Lambdas of the world, for the Vercels, for the Netlify function, the Cloudflare, etc. Yeah, on in your dev box, in your local machine, or in your like persistent, like long running server process, like who cares, right? Node's plenty fast for that kind of stuff as long as you're not blocking or something. But
There is actually there's an interesting separation there between execution time and boot time. All right, we had a conversation, was it with Cloudflare or someone like that on one previous episode? I can look it up, where they were basically compiling the entire Node runtime to WebAssembly because then they didn't have to boot the Node process for the serverless thing. And so if they're,
Right.
and I haven't dug deep into what Dino is promising or what Bun is doing, but if they're dramatically improving like the boot time for running it as compared to the, you know, sort of execution time once the thread is booted, that could have a serious impact on serverless environments.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's Dino's big changes. A lot of talk. They still have to deliver. Hopefully they are. This is definitely a good direction, especially with the NPM stuff, for them to get people using it actually out there in the real world. So love to see the competition too. Like, you know, the fact that Bun comes out, makes these benchmarks, blows everybody's mind, and it's like now the Dino team's like, hey, we gotta get faster. Like that, everybody wins. So that's super cool. All right, let's move on. KBall, what is your story of the week?
Yeah, so I saw that Chrome in their next mainline release is going to have container queries. Yes, they've been shipping it behind, you know, a flag for a while, people testing it, doing different things. This is, you know, for in case folks are not familiar with container queries, this has been like a top requested CSS feature for as long as I've been in web development, which
Yeah.
that's a long ass time.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, like I need to tell y'all, like this is really exciting, especially for me, because the first conference I ever spoke at was JSConf EU in 2018, 4 years ago, and there was a talk about container queries at this conference, where effectively the talk was, here's why they can't be done. And so 4 years later, they're shipping in Chrome. This is a huge deal. It's really awesome to see.
So that's coming up in version 105. What's Chrome at now? Like, is this like right around the corner? Or is this out there on the beta channel? What's the status?
I just upgraded to 104, I think. So
Yeah.
this is
Okay,
next.
so right around the corner, less than 2 weeks away, right? Or is it not 2 week? Is it a 2 week cycle or a 6 week cycle? I can never remember. And neither can you. None of us work on the Chrome team. I don't know. Just hit your update function and see if it's there.
Yeah,
105.
6 weeks.
Just reboot your Chrome.
I
6 weeks
wonder-
sounds like it makes more sense.
I'm curious to look into this article and see the syntax one would have to write in CSS to query a container. It sounds interesting, but it definitely unlocks a whole world of like new things you can do. I'm excited.
Absolutely. All right, real quick look. So that's Chrome. Can I use.com container queries?
Under
Safari 16 technology preview. It's supported. Chrome 105 partial support 106. It says it's like totally green. So Safari, which includes iOS and Chrome, are green, and Firefox is
Nice.
still bloody red. So not gonna have 100% coverage anytime soon. But I wonder if and when Firefox is gonna jump on this bandwagon.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. All right, Tejas, what about yourself? What's your story of the week?
Something that I've
I'm really excited about. It's from you.
reached from Florida.
The
Yeah, we
this
just
awesome
had Yuri on the
Tamale post.
podcast a couple weeks back.
Dude. And so is
NX. Man, like
honestly, they could do like a
masterclass in like
developer.
their
tool for repos is just is it's pristine. Anyway,
hey, about how
NX
by saving
2 centuries of compute time. So it's a fascinating read about caching, but why and I'm not gonna like tell you about it because there's a link, you can read it yourself, but what I will tell you, and I think what's more interesting for the podcast is why I chose to share this and why.
that's because
the planet's dying, and we make it work.
We do.
All those node modules,
Yeah,
like you people.
Okay.
No, but this article is so
Use Dino,
heavily.
man. There's no node modules, you know.
Exactly. See, that should be their pitch.
That could be save the planet.
Use Dino, save the world. No, but this talks about the carbon footprint, the reduced carbon footprint of NX Cloud, based on their reduced computation through caching. So like they in the last 7 days have saved about 400 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions. 400 kilograms, that's almost half a ton in a week. So it's a fascinating read about how they're doing this. And what I really like about this is it draws attention to responsible computing. You know, going back to human skills, I think being conscious of our environmental impact is another human skill. That's quite important. And that's another pillar of impact, if you will, going back to the blog post, right? We do have an environmental impact that we ought, at this point, that we ought to acknowledge. You know why? Because it's the peak of summer here in Germany, some 100 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit, and it just like
Bucketing outside thunderstorms out of literally
nowhere. And I'm not used to extreme weather like this, y'all. So all of this kind of inspired me sharing this big story of the week.
Yeah, we touched a little bit on this in our podcast with Yuri, which was, I think, just 3 or 4 weeks ago. But it looks like the article goes much deeper on what they're doing there, which is great.
Yeah, I can recommend.
Very cool stuff with big implications. Well, we're running short on time, but we want to get to shout-outs because you've teased it a couple times, and we have to deliver this book recommendation, which you're in love with. Tejas, explain the book, why you love it, where people can find it. KBall already bought it during the break, so this is a good sales pitch. Actually, he just told KBall that it's great, and KBall just bought it. So help everybody else be convinced.
Sure, yeah, the book. So I, first of all, need to say I have no vested interest in this book. I'm not going to get money or anything if you buy it. I'm not an affiliate or whatever, but I genuinely believe in it. Like, it has helped every relationship I have, and all of the strained ones that I have had, many of us have difficult relationships, have recovered gracefully. And it's really, I've seen the results. This book is called Plays Well with Others by Eric Barker. And I love the concept even, because how it works is the book explores maxims that we hear growing up. Maxims like, just be yourself. And maxims like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? And then you ask yourself, okay, but which one? Both of these conflict.
Myself, or do I do as the Romans do? And what he does is,
Eric does is he takes the saying through the lens of science. Science
from leading research bodies.
And the cool thing about this book is, I read it on my iPhone, so the screen size was a bit small, but on my device, the last 200 pages were all footnotes and citations. And you can go read the research for yourself. It's fascinating stuff. So the book looks at questions like, can you judge a book by its cover? Meaning, can you read people's intentions or not? Is no man an island? Do opposites actually attract? And it's got like amazing takeaways for interpersonal relationships, work relationships, marriages, like every relationship you can think of. So yeah, huge shout out from me, and I would recommend it to literally everyone.
Very cool. Well, the links in the show notes. KBall, I know you have some shout outs written down. We have a minute or two. If you want to make it quick, we'll do a couple more shout outs before the show's over.
Yeah, I just have one I was going to shout out, which is Lead Dev, or leaddev.com. It's one of the few places I've seen that is actually publishing good technical and non-technical content for engineers who are way beyond just working on technical details. So this human skills concept that we've been talking about, architectural concepts, all sorts of different things. So they focus on both kind of staff plus engineers, so folks who are really advanced in their careers but still as individual contributors. And then they also have a bunch of stuff for engineering managers and leaders. And I have been loving their content. I've started trying to write for them. I love they've got panels, they've got conferences, they've got all sorts of stuff. And so, I just love seeing more attention on those later stages of a career that often have been neglected, and there's not much good material out there for it.
Very cool. And I see you have been doing some of your own writing on the site as well, isn't that right, KBall? You want to
I
shout
have.
out any of your, what are some of your pieces you've written?
So, well, I've published 2 pieces with them so far. They're both focused on kind of that sort of bridge between technology and human skills. So one is focused on the idea of quality ratchets. So how do you institute, once you get to be working on problems that are too big to solve in one go, how do you start introducing ratchets into that so that you can improve the quality and then it doesn't backslide while you have to focus on something else? And so how do you introduce both technical ratchets, human ratchets, other types of things in place to kind of keep quality moving in the right direction? The other one is on a refactoring technique called creating application seams, and this idea of creating seams in your application that give you the ability to kind of chunk changes in a way that's not impactful to the rest of code. And it's an especially useful technique when you work with a lot of legacy code, where legacy code is anything 6 months and older is one of my favorite definitions, or anything untested, or anything where stuff has gotten a little out of hand and things are kind of spaghettied together, or you've got your data model tangled up with your usage, or all sorts of different problems. How do you kind of tease that apart and create something that is actually easy to work with? So those are both fun. I'm pitching them some more articles. As I said, I love what they're doing here, and this is a domain that I think there's really interesting ideas to talk about. Like, how do we make engineering as a discipline better beyond writing better code?
Very cool. All right, we are getting to the end of the show. Tejas, thanks so much for joining us. Any final words from you before we call it a day?
No, I don't have any final words.
All right.
It's like you put me on the spot. I don't know what to say. But this has been great. I've enjoyed vibing with y'all thoroughly. You're nice people. I would do this again sometime.
We
Let's do it.
appreciate it. We enjoyed having you on as well. If you like Tejas, you like what he's up to, maybe go see his talk at React Brussels. If you're in the area of Brussels, October 14th, try to go IRL. If you're not, they are going to be hybrid, so they'll be online as well. Maybe check out his YouTube if you want to check out that talk he was referring to earlier, where he deconstructs React. Of course, all the links to all the things are in your show notes. We've got the Pillars of Impact blog post. We've got all the news we discussed. We have the link to that book. And lead dev, KBall, hook me up with your pieces. We'll link to your pieces as well. And so you can follow up and follow the trail of the interesting stuff discussed here. Well, that's all for today. Oh, and don't forget, if you do want to go to React Brussels, save yourself 30%. Get that JS Party Time coupon code, and follow JS Party FM on Twitter for details about the giving away of 1 IRL ticket and 5 online tickets. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Why not, right? Why not? That's what I say. So that's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm Jared. That's KBall. Tejas was our special guest today, and we'll talk to you all next time. Keep clapping. That's because I don't have our outro track set up, so I'm just going to go with the clapping. Well done. Well done. Take it back. Oh, man, this one goes on. How much cheering can one person suffer? All right. That's the show, y'all. We'll say goodbye to YouTube, and we'll talk to you same time next week. We got Gleb Bakhmatov coming back on with Amel, talking about more testing in Cypress, and the guy just is a wealth of information on those things. So stay tuned for that next Thursday, same time, same station.